Hey guys, it's Chris. From buildings that were able to burn just about anything with their reflection, to oddly shaped buildings that seem to defy logic, join me as I show you the most unusual buildings. Number 10. The Walkie-Talkie Building. I want you to look at this building. What do you think is wrong with it? If you're thinking it's about to collapse or fall over in some way, you'd be wrong. Everything about this building is sound except for one thing. That thing is the curved nature of one side of the building, a side that has mirrored glass. Why was that a problem? Well, because where it was located in London meant that the sun would be beating down on the mirrored and curved glass, which would then reflect and focus the sunlight onto the ground level, causing things to melt, burn, scorch, and just be an unpleasant section of London to walk through. It got so bad that things were being set on fire and citizens called the place the Walkie-Scorchy. The solution to this was not as easy as you might expect, and the results of the fix were costly to say the least. The building itself was already $220 million in cost, but then they had to put a shade across some of the windows to dissipate the light, and thus allowing people to go throughout the streets safely. Which again may seem simple, but given the height of the building and the number of windows they needed to fix, it wasn't simple. In fact, it cost many millions of dollars, and it made the designer of the building, who was very famous and thus was hired to make the walkie-talkie because of that fame, well, he looked kind of foolish. But at the end of the day, it was fixed, and the people didn't have to fear the building anymore. Number 9. The Toronto Duplex. Out there in the world right now are plenty of odd and unique houses that are just begging to be stared at. And one such place is a duplex that is not only more than meets the eye, you'll think your eyes are playing tricks on you. You see, one day a person came along and wanted to buy the duplex that resided in Toronto. One resident in it was all for it. The other was not and refused to sell. Very typical stuff if you think about it. That was a problem for the overall deal though, but the property buyers made a unique solution to the problem. They proposed and the residents agreed to cut the building in half in a very literal sense and seal up the middle so that the other duplex owner could still live there. Yet the business people would get their building. And yeah, they agreed to do just that. The house, or halfway house as it's being referred to now by some, still remains in Toronto at 54.5 St. Patrick Street. Many don't know the full history of this home, and thus they think it's a joke. It's also now an internet meme due to the picture of the house being posted on Reddit. And now for number 8. But first, be sure to subscribe if you haven't already and let me know if you visited any of these places in the comments below. Number 8. The Museum of Play. Sometimes a building's unusual nature is not necessarily in its construction, but in its intent. The Strong National Museum of Play, also known as the Museum of Play for short, is indeed a museum that is dedicated solely to the studying and honoring of play, like kids and teens and adults playing with various things. Things you can find in this museum are exhibits dedicated to toys, to comic books, to video games, and they are even home to the Video Game Hall of Fame. Its intentions over the years have varied depending on who owned the museum. In the 1990s, the museum's board of trustees and director changed the museum's mission to collecting, preserving, and interpreting the history of play. Since then, it has refined and increased its collections, hundreds of thousands of items, and expanded twice, in 1997 and 2006. It also should be noted that this place is not small. It's located in New York and takes up over 280,000 square feet, which again is something you wouldn't expect from a museum that is dedicated to nothing but toys and games. Some, of course, relish the notion of going to this museum in order to witness all the joy that creations like these toys and books and dolls and games have had. But to others, it may seem a bit odd. Number 7. KUGELMUGEL. This particular ball-shaped house may seem odd just in terms of appearance, but its history is even more odd because this particular house literally caused a micronation to be born. The Republic of KUGELMUGEL is a micronation located at the Prater in Vienna, Austria. The Republic declared independence in 1976 after disputes between artist Edwin Lipburger and Austrian authorities over building permits for a ball-shaped house, which he erected at the Landestrasse 4091 in Katzeldorf, Lower Austria in 1971. In 1979, Lipburger was arrested and sent to jail for 10 weeks. Such a thing rarely happens in the world, especially in the 20th century. Yet here it is, a home that is also a micronation. While eventually the home was moved to Prater Park and became a popular tourist attraction for many, the micronation still technically exists. even though it only has 650 non-resident citizens. Lipburger died in 2015, but not before clearly making his mark on the world by having his art become literally and figuratively larger than life. Number 6. WONDERWORKS. Take a look at this building known as WONDERWORKS. You might think that this is a place that has been put through the ringer in terms of damage because it's literally upside down and looks like a natural disaster hit it. But in fact, this is exactly how it's supposed to look. This is one of a set of 5 museums that you'll find across the United States, and they're meant to teach science and bend how you think on things. The company's slogan is "Let your imagination run wild." Its buildings are commonly built as if they were upside down. The experience is considered as edutainment, a combination of education and entertainment. It contains over 100 hands-on exhibits that challenge your mind and many activities for guests to explore. Arguably the biggest reason that this building is unusual is the lengths the designers went to make an upside-down building work. Think about just any other museum and you'll see very standard architecture, but not here. Call it eccentricity, call it a desire to be different from the rest, or something else entirely. There's little doubt, though, that the effect is felt from the moment you see it. Number 5. Community Bookshelf, Kansas City Central Library. If you were to view the main part of the Kansas City Central Library, you would see nothing out of the ordinary. It looks and feels like a standard library. However, if you were to head to the parking area of the library, you'll find yourself looking at a massive set of books known as the Community Bookshelf. It runs along the south wall of the Central Library's parking garage on 10th Street, between Wyandotte Street and Baltimore Avenue. The book spines, which measure approximately 25 feet by 9 feet, are made of signboard mylar. The shelf showcases 22 titles, reflecting a wide variety of reading interests as suggested by Kansas City readers, and then selected by the Kansas City Public Library Board of Trustees. This is indeed a very unique way to show the importance of books, but to go that large and to do 22 of these massive structures all alongside a parking garage is definitely something that not many would do or want to spend money to do. Number 4. Montreal BIOSPHERE. The idea of spherical buildings is not new, but when it comes to the size and uniqueness of the one known as the Montreal BIOSPHERE, it's something else entirely. Believe it or not, this is a museum that is dedicated to the environment and was once built for the World's Fair that was hosted there. It was originally a sealed environment, but then a fire burned away the bubble that sealed it, and yet the metal trusses remained perfectly fine. Since then, it has been bought, rebranded, and remade into various kinds of museums and exhibits that are dedicated to the environment. The Biosphere changed its name in 2007 to become an environmental museum. It offers interactive activities and presents exhibitions about the major environmental issues related to water, climate change, air, eco-technologies, and sustainable development. Given all that is going on in the world right now, having such a building feels appropriate, even if it is a very oddly shaped museum to house such things. Number 3. Longaberger Basket Building. There have been many companies and buildings over the years that try and embody what it means to be the product that's being sold. But when it came to the Longaberger Basket Building in Ohio, they did exactly what a basket-making company would do, for better or worse. In short, they made a building that was literally shaped like one of the baskets that they made. This included having 2 massive wooden handles that were over the building that weigh over 100 tons. The irony of this is manifold, not the least of which is to think of the time and effort taken to not just make the building look like a basket, but design it in such a way that it could still operate like a corporate headquarters, which was its intent. The other irony is that eventually the company went under, and the building itself was abandoned and almost foreclosed on. But now it's aiming to be a luxury hotel, one that may open soon. Should it do that, it might just be the only hotel in the world that's shaped like a basket, and they'll no doubt use it as a selling point and a marketing strategy. Number 2. The Transparent House. The idea of an actual glass house that everyone can see into might sound quite ludicrous, and yet one does indeed exist in public thanks to Japan. Known as the Transparent House, it resides in Tokyo, Japan, is 914 square feet, and was constructed by Su Fujimoto Architects. Every single aspect of this house in regards to the outside is see-through. You can see everything that resides in this house from top to bottom. The reason for this design is actually one based off the principles of living in trees like our ancestors did. The white steel frame structure itself shares no resemblance to a tree, yet the life lived and the moments experienced in this space is a contemporary adaptation of the richness once experienced by the ancient predecessors from the time when they inhabited trees, says Sue Fujimoto. Clearly, this is a house that is meant for people who don't mind being viewed from all angles at all points of the day, which likely is fewer people than you would think. Number 1. TAUM SAUK. If you look at this particular body of water, you might wonder why it's shaped that way, is clearly in the mountains and more. That's because this is the TAUM SAUK hydroelectric power station, located in the Ozark Mountains of Missouri. The TAUM SAUK plant is an open-loop pure pumped operation. Unlike some other pumped storage sites, there is no natural primary flow into the upper reservoir available for generation. It is therefore a net consumer of electricity. The laws of thermodynamics dictate that more power is used to pump the water up the mountain than is generated when it comes down. So as you can see, its design was made so it can better run while not having certain restrictions. In 2005, though, there was a catastrophic failure at the power plant that forced it to be shut down. However, it was opened back up in 2010. A new upper reservoir dam rebuilt from the ground up is the largest roller compacted concrete dam in North America. Thanks for watching. What did you think of these unusual buildings that just seem to boggle the mind? Which of them did you think was the oddest of the bunch? Do you think you'd want to live or work at one of these places? Do you know of any other buildings that should have been on the list? Let us know in the comments below. Be sure to subscribe to World List, and I'll see you next time on the channel.